On the Isle of Field, St Mary's Park, we had some absolute beasts by the name of Same Difference, which is Size B and Hazy Haze. And if you've looked up any bit of Limerick hip hop, you definitely know this Grizzly man. He's probably one of the best in the whole country, without a shadow of a doubt. And yeah, so we had them kind of like lit branches of different things, but we wanted to bring the whole city together. So the four elements of us had to come together. We had to be able to bridge the gap. And like Weston and my Ross, predominantly in gangland feud times, we would never have got along. And if like we seen each other, it was hot, it was tense kind of a thing, yeah. So it was great to be able to break down them barriers and to be able to merge the gaps between society and then start to do this music in a more productive way. Because and it's not to bring bad to the areas, because I didn't always grow up in them areas. I know Jared since I was 4 years of age when I got put out into foster care. Jared was one of the people that I make good friends with and still class him as a friend to this day. But when I kind of came back in around the town and stuff, you start to realise that there's a lot of violence, there's a lot of negative tendencies, there's a lot of openness for wrongdoings. And unfortunately, we would have to have went through them cycles to be able to mature, grow up and understand that they're negative cycles. So the best way that we could use them and stop getting fucking charge sheets and stop getting into trouble and stop playing cops and robbers was to put it into creativity. Because creativity, there is judgment, but you're allowed to create, you're allowed to be as you want, you're allowed to do your art. And I think having that freedom of being yourself was very important for us. And then to be housed by, like, we had Music Generation in Limerick City. Music Generation in Limerick City was like, it's like an open door policy. Didn't care where you came from, just go do your music. And they housed it and they facilitated it. And like, out of every one of them, I'd say I was the roughest one out of the whole lot. and that's not condemning myself, that's being overly honest. But they facilitated spaces where they were able to mould you, and like very subtly mould you. It wasn't a thing like, okay, come in here, conform, do this. It was like, oh yeah, you have this boisterous personality. Why don't you do boisterous rap? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Channel your energy, put it towards something. And I think they were kind of like the grassroots. And then obviously, when you have the boys from the different staples of the city, you want to fucking compete. As much as we're there together, like, yeah, I'm better than you. No, you're better than me. I'm better than you. I'm 10 years older than you. I'm 5 years younger than you. So there's that kind of a family essence to it, where there's competition in itself. And yeah, I think that's kind of the beginning of where it all began. Yeah.
Oh, great. Do you remember what was the first time you heard hip hop or sort of got into hip hop? What was it that drew you to it?
I don't think my mama knows this one, but my mama used to do a lot of journeys. So when I still am living with the people that fostered me, and so like my mama comes from Wexford, and so we would have to go from Clare to Wexford to Clare, and it was kind of like, how can we occupy this kid's time? You know, he's a little bit agitated in the back. So I was like, buy me CDs. CDs is always a good way of singing songs. So I brought her in and she got me the 8 Mile album. I don't think she knew what the 8 Mile album was at the time, but for anyone that doesn't know, it's Eminem, and it's probably one of his grassroots of his darker days. And so I was like, yeah, fuck this. And she was like, yeah, he's happy. And so I think that was kind of like the first time I ever got into hip hop. Yeah, was that and Will Smith, funnily enough, because we share the same name. Willem, yeah.
There you go. Yeah. What is it about? What is it that you think about the Limerick scene that it's so vibrant? I mean, there's so many artists, and it's such a unique voice, and there's so many unique voices, and it's such a strong, vibrant scene of hip hop. Why is that, do you think?
To me, I think it's because we're the closest thing to America, outside of maybe like fucking, I don't know, not great at geography, but like tonal wise, nasal wise, delivery, accents, like all of that stuff. Like, if you look at Dublin is very influenced by England because they're neighbours, and so like that kind of thing fucking thankfully gets diluted the whole way down the country. and then by the time you come to Limerick, you're like, oh yeah, it was some ordinary sounding people as such. But yeah, so I think it's that, man, and I think it's just the city in itself having been portrayed back in the days as like the highest stabbings of Europe. The bad city at St Mary's Park being the crack epidemic of Ireland, fucking just all of these things, gangland feuds, especially the feud, man. The feud was the most kind of like submerging thing, and I think when you grow up and you carry that weight of your aunts and your uncles or your cousins and their decisions, and even if you don't want to be involved in them decisions, because you share the clan name, you're a part of it whether you want it or not. So it's it's that, it's about the survival, it's about the authenticity that you have to yourself, it's about like Limerick being such a close network that if you start talking shit, man, you would get called out in it, like, you know, like, my father had gold, he didn't, he's, you know what I mean? And so there's kind of all of that, and yeah, I think it's the autism, or the authenticity of it, I think that's the most important part.
Yeah, great. Yeah, that's a great answer, yeah, thanks. And tell me, how does your music, we listened to a few of your tracks, and
Yeah.
we listened to A Dream of Peace quite a bit, and I actually have the lyrics. We actually studied the lyrics.
Yes.
We took notes and everything. You see all my notes.
Yeah. Mad people.
I know. So I'm really interested in, like, you've already talked about how your music addresses local issues, Limerick issues, issues about being a traveller man, discrimination against travellers.
Yeah.
I'm also interested in how do you also address issues that are more global, beyond Limerick as well, because you do that in your music as well.
I think it just comes from my upbringing. I think because I come from the travelling community, okay, I have like the traveller in me, but I also got raised by beautiful settled people, right? Mm-hmm. And so the way I look at my life is I land in the realm of what we call a trabuffer, which is buffer is like a settled person, but there's no discrimination or anything with it. It's just our colloquialism towards that what we call things. So there's a buffer and a traveller. And I call myself a trabuffer, which means I exist in the land of the middle. And so for me, like, I have these kind of worldly influences coming from my mama and my pops. My mama, God bless her, she'd probably kill me for not recycling half enough, although I preach the good word. I need to start washing my plastic, but it's about all of that. It's about like listening to the influences. Like, I can't express it enough. She does everything that she possibly can, and she's a very thankless person. And so for me, I try and use that little bit of encouragement, or her little kind of a way of life, to be able to narrate the scenarios a little bit more. And like, so thankfully I have a daughter on the way as well, and it's about like looking at the life that I want her to come into, and the longevity of the world, and how I want her to be seen, because she will be a second generation trabuffer, because her mother is settled. So therefore, how do I want that house for her? What can I make her vision of reality look like? And I think it's about talking about these worldly issues, and they're not nice. Like global warming is kind of like, oh yeah, global warming, nah. But like when you get into racism, and you get into systemic like discrimination, and you talk about the lack of education, deprived all of these amenities and stuff, then you're starting to be a part of the world, then you're starting to move with the world. But I think if you hold your ignorance and you're like, fuck it, someone else will do it, then nothing ever gets done, because everyone does that. Everyone says, if he does it, I'll do it. But you have to do it for him to do it. So I kind of have the chain, so why not get up and fucking do it? That's basically it. So.
Yeah. Great answer.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have lots of questions. I have one more question. Your debut album,
Coup de Grace.
Coup de Grace, which is in Gammon.
Yeah, Traveller Kind.
Yeah. I'm really fascinated about. I haven't heard. I know very little of traveller culture. I'll be very honest with you, and Gammon as well. So I wonder if you could explain a bit about. How was the language alive today, and in your own life? How vibrant is it?
Oh Jesus, that's a good one.
Yeah. I've thrown you.
No, you're okay. Anyway, so what it is for me, especially with the language and stuff. So Coup de Grace means a piece of heart, and for me, the gathering of all these stories for that album was like, I started off where I was in foster care, and then I kind of progressively go through a life as it developed. Not all of it, of course, but certain aspects of it. And with the Traveller, Gammon and Cant and stuff like that, it was for me, because I grew up away from that culture for a long time, it was like me reintegrating now back into my culture and rediscovering it. And as I started to look at the Gammon language, especially, like, the Gammon language goes back to nearly as far as the Ogham language. And the Ogham language is like one of the oldest Celtic languages that you can get. And like, travellers in themselves were known as like iron forgers, and they were known like on the battlefield when they went to war, like all of these heroes that you hear today, travellers were kept on the battlefield because they were the only people that were able to use steel, forge steel and everything. But because of colonialism and stuff like that, and Jewish or not anti-Jewish legislations and stuff that came into Ireland, and then kind of like the Freemason stuff, it started to bring the German and the kind of Nazi propaganda towards Ireland, and that means that, like, if you look at Hitler and stuff, Hitler got rid of all the travellers, the disabled, and a lot of other Jews, and so because this influence was coming into Ireland at that stage, then it meant that, let alone were we offset from the Irish community, but we were now having these people that were like anti-traveller, get these fuckers out, like, you know, we've already done it before. So what happened is the travellers went away and created their own language, their own sense of security, and it's really a pull of like the old Irish language and their own version of what English is, and they just went, that's our language from now on. And like some of the words will be like shade, which is kind of the most common one, and that's kind of like a guard. And you have a fiend, which is a man, a bior, a nasha, which is another thing for a young fella, a sublik is another one for a young fella. You have wobs, that's another one for the guards. It's funny how I know the one's all for the guards. yeah, but there's a lot in it, man, and I think, and my uncle Willie, he was known as the candlelight painter, and he wrote a book about the gammon, and I think that's just kind of like having that little bit of heritage, my family as well being integrated with it. It's kind of like I had to go on and rekindle the flame, you know. Yeah,
that's great. You're very eloquent about it too. Yeah. I might ask you about something slightly outside of music and well, extending out beyond hip hop now. And we were talking on the way over about I don't know if you're okay to talk about the upcoming theatre project you have going on.
I know.
No, okay, no. That's on the wraps. Okay.
You get shot.
Okay, okay, that's still on the wraps. Maybe you could talk a bit about how you, besides being an artist and making albums, how you work with communities, how you take your work into communities. I know you've done quite a lot of community work, so maybe you can speak a bit about that.
So I'll bridge both of them very fast. Yeah. So the theatre show is the pull from the community. The theatre show is me having looked at multiple different communities, multiple different facets of religions and personalities and people's orientation and what you believe in and stuff. And like, if we were to look at the African culture, I didn't know until I started to do this, but it's very heavily influenced by Muslim beliefs and Islamic languages and Arabic languages, and then you have another part of it where it's like the old French. So if I'm in Africa and I'm already in touch with France and I'm in touch with Israel or Arabia, then I need to go there and know how many nationalities are really connecting with each other, how many of us actually share the same fucking thing, only for a different grade of colour or different, and I think that's something that we overlooking. And so for me to get to that point, I first had to go back into the community, and my community is a community that's forgotten for years. It's a community that's unwanted, and I'm not saying by ye, but there's certain higher ups that do not want travellers in there. And I think when I looked at the history of the travellers and especially the 1963 itinerancy report, which was a report that was kind of founded off of the basis of all the German influence as well, Spain, France and England, but they brought in a rake of policies that was like travellers weren't allowed to have education. If they weren't allowed to have the same level of their settled peers, and there's so much that kind of weighed down the travellers that when I wanted to reintegrate with the community, man, the first thing I wanted to do was, how interested are you in education? Because this is something that's hammering away. To be honest, no one gives a about education. Unless you're an educator, unless that's what you want to do, unless you want to be an educator, unless you want that knowledge. They're people of the land. Their grandparents were people of the land. Travellers work the land, so automatically and because of prejudicial kind of feelings and systemic kind of racism or whatever might have happened, they don't look to come into third level education, or they don't look for that. So for me, I had to look at it in a different way. What can I bring to the table? And it was creativity. And boy, and I look at every one of you inside in this room, do the travellers have some creativity? And I say it proudly because I didn't look at it. The settled person in me walked into them halting sites and was like, yeah, let's see what the gypsies do, let's see what they can do. But I'm telling you, last year I spent 6 months on workshops. So I had multiple workshops in a program called Guten Min Keri, which is the care of my people. And so throughout them I facilitated workshops in doing nails, funnily enough, hair, weaving, wrapping, creativity, filmmaking, photographs, oil paintings. And I had so much that we ended up actually doing a festival, which was the first festival in Limerick, and it was called the Trab Fest. very similar to the Trad Fest that we wanted to catch them. Because they were like, oh, Trad Fest, no, it's an actual traveller festival. So yeah, we wanted to rope them in, and just to be there. This was last November when we had the Trad Fest, and the accumulation of all that work was just so for the heart, man. It was so beautiful, because I was seeing these people that were otherwise left to their own demise now being in a place where they wouldn't normally come to, drinking tea, talking to the Lord Mayor of Limerick. Now, I might seem big, but fucking Mayor of Limerick at this festival, you know what I mean? And they're talking to him, and they're engaging, and there's networks and there's plans, and that's the beauty of it. That's the community element for me, is not what I can do for me, because that's a very selfish act to do in life, but it's what I can share with people, and to see their joy, that's my return. That's, you know, so.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
Geez, I wonder, Wilzee, will you give us a piece of music?
Well, indeed,
we've had you talk, and we listen to you talk. You did offer, so.
Yeah. So let's. What would be the most appropriate? Seeing as I was talking about travellers, I'll do a traveller piece. It's hard to imagine. We were created in a wagon, to a society that was never bragging, just backing each other about what we believed, like the amount of ministers that have deceived. Promised us housing, yet we live in a field. Do you understand how that feels? Calling our side evergreen, because the pain never leaves. I'm sick of seeing these deaths, comes in 3s, 4s and 5s. I can't let it happen to these poor lives that are said to be seen as poltergeists. While the wealthy are seen as poltergeists, it's time to know the rise. There's more ties to our community than ever before. It's common now to say Fiann or Bure, tackling horses, taking a tour. We're all travellers, we all like to explore. But still they ignore it because we live a different lifestyle. It ain't guns, it's our fists, and that's the fight style. And if you want to throw shit in that my pile, but I'll be the travelling man walking his own miles. Thank you.
Cool. Brilliant, man.
Thank you, bro.
Brilliant. Okay. Well, I think I'm sure you guys have some questions. We'll take a question from the floor, as they say. Anybody brave enough?
I don't buy it.
Go ahead. No, you go first.
I'm sick of him anyway, come on.
We had enough time.
Yeah.
Tara, then Jared, yeah.
Okay, so this is about music.
Yeah.
So if you were to branch into a new genre of music as an artist, what genre would it be?
Beautiful question. At the moment in time, I'm actually constructing album number 2, and album number 2 is pulling from the traveller culture. So a lot of the bones were a hi-hat kind of an element that was used a lot. We have a lot of the banjos, the strings, the uilleann pipes, and the harmonica. So I would be doing something mad with them anyway, I'd imagine. And of course laying some 808s underneath it, and really getting into that side as well, bringing more hip hop, traveller hip hop, trav hop. I just created it.
There you go.
No, there you go.
Yeah, great. Jared,
How did the Wilzee MVP program come about? Was that something you spearheaded or something you were invited into?
So the Wilzee MVP project was a part of the Gutenberg Carey thing. So I was luckily enough to be able to find an organisation in Limerick called the GAF, which is a non-profit organisation based for community, like people and things like that. And like I initially started out on a course with them, and then it kind of fluctuated from there. But then they were like, okay, Wilz, look, you're the only vocal traveller in Limerick at the moment in time, and for many of the travelling community especially, it's unheard of. We don't talk about our emotions, at least we're not supposed to. I never shut up, but anyway. But so that was that, man. And then I ended up fucking teaming up with them. We ended up applying for a lot of grants. We were lucky enough to get a grant that was able to facilitate the whole Gutenberg Carey project in a whole, and then the Wilzee MVP project. Of course I had to do something in it, because like, it's just beautiful. It's a beautiful thing, and if I was the voice, of course I have to put myself forward. I have to do the work. I can't be just everyone is great and then he's shit. I have to be better and do it.
Cool. Cheers.
Ellie, next question.
Mine's kind of related to Tara's, but is there any artists from a different genre that you'd like to collaborate with, and why?
Dolly Parton. I'd love to do a feature with Dolly Parton. I think like she's been one of the voices I've heard since I grew up, and my mother, God rest her, before she passed away, that was her favourite artist. So if I could get anyone, it would be her. If I had to settle for second best, fuck, I don't know, Joe Dolan or something. I don't know. No one's getting a flower like that. Dolly is, yeah, give it to Dolly, yeah.
That's quite an album. Dolly Parton and
Yeah,
Joe
yeah, me.
featuring Wilzee. I'd buy that record. Wow, great. Yeah.
This is about your short film. What interested you in films like make that short film?
Well, the short film that you
Innocent Boy.
Innocent Boy, you got the,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Virgin Media. We've done our research.
Okay, that's what I was like, okay. So, inspiration behind the film. Initially, I got into doing music production and sound development. Let me stand up. I got into doing music production and stuff like that, and that was like a level 5 feedback award. And so after that, then I kind of wanted to branch out, and I was paying people ridiculous money for films and doing videos. Although now I understand why they're ridiculous, but back then I didn't because I was egotistical. And so yeah, then I started like, okay, I'm getting into college and doing this, and then throughout the college course I started to learn how to do treatments and draw upon different things, scenes, acts, scripts, the whole lot. And I was like, okay, now what can we do with it? And I was like, let's write a treatment and see how it goes. So the best thing I can ever give to anyone in advice of if they want to create pulls from yourself, look at your own life experiences, look at what you've been through. Because although you think that me and Jared walk down there and I fall bang when he falls bang seasonally, that's two different interpretations of the same event that happens. And so your story is unique to yourself. No matter how common you think it is, it's unique to yourself because you see it through your eyes. And so do that, like for me that was it. I had to just pull, and I was like, okay, innocent boy, I'm a young lad who went into foster care. I got dramatically bullied for a long time. How can I make it even more kind of like heart pulling? Well, if you break my glasses, it's not too bad, but if I pull a hearing aid out of your ear and throw it across the field, then it's like, no, he's here and it's going away. So it's kind of like, oh, fuck, I have to stop. And I think that was it. It was just kind of drawn upon that, and saving Jack at the end was the most important part, because I didn't want an ending where it was like, oh, and then he died, and that's what bullying does. It's kind of like he was surrounded by his family. There was an element of love, and love genuinely will help you through anything. So yeah, that's it. Yeah. I'm gonna sit back down.
Great. More questions? Yeah, Julian?
It's about the beats you're using in like your song you publish on YouTube. Like for the one I listen to, they are mostly like floating beats, like without drums and things like this. Is it because like it lets more space for the vocals and the other thing, or is it like just because you're inspired by this type
Really
of
good.
thing?
Yeah, you're bang on, mate. The whole thing about it is right. So if I go, spawn the leads on, giving a newborn brought to live in a monster within the truth for unconscious with the Macassar film spoof. So that's very hard, okay. Especially coming from Limerick and having a thick accent. So I think being in a yoga-like state when I write, I think it's only good that I be in a yoga-like state when I deliver it to the people, and I think that's kind of nice because it allows that soakage for you to be able to go, okay, that's actually what he's saying, and that kind of feels right. And yeah, and because of spoken word, like poetry in itself is such a free-form art, and it has many things, like poetry can be done in many different elements, that I think if you have a free-flow beat, you can be a poet, like 8-bar poet, and you can just be a free poet. And you can be back on the 8-bar again. There's no confinedness, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, good question, yeah, great answer, yeah. Who does most of your beats for you, production for you?
In the gallery, shout out In the Gallery, yeah. Welcome to the New World. I was very, very lucky to end up getting signed to them in 2017, and along with the South Drive, they're like, "Whatcha, get the work, boy." So yeah, it's a good teaming up, yeah. Yeah. But Enda is a fascinating person, because for me, predominantly, I wouldn't have a beat to write my pieces to. I go off into Tinkerland and I think, and then I come back, and then I'm like, okay, Enda, and he's like, oh shit, bro, this is. And I'm like, how is that? But it works. It so works.
Great, yeah. Interesting to hear about your creative process, yeah. More questions? I know you all had great questions when we were chatting last week.
Yeah, don't be afraid. Yeah. Don't be afraid.
when will you get a chance to ask a question like this in a tutorial again? Probably not for a while. Liam, do you have a question? You look like you do. You had half a hand.
I was just gonna ask about like when you were starting off rapping, like what was like, how did you find yourself find your way into the Limerick hip hop scene? Like was it very small? Was it beginning to grow when you got into it?
Great question, man. Great question. I think I just came and kicked down the door, really. Just being very rude. But to be honest with you, what happened to me and how I got into the whole rapping stuff was I was in a very, very negative place in life, and I ran across a cousin of mine who at the time had just given his life to Christianity, and I'm not here to talk about the Bible, but when I realised that, I was like, bro, what are you doing? And he was like, oh yeah, you've never been to a Christian church? And I was like, no. And he was like, hey, do you know a fella called God Knows? And at this time I was like, no, what the fuck is this fella? Like, and they were like, no, trust me. So I ended up going into Mass, man, funnily enough, and with my cousin, and I seen G, God Knows, and I seen Morley, and I seen all them, and they were jumping around this church, and it was like, this is not religion, because normally you're like, oh, but this was like, yeah, we're celebrating God. And I was like, lovely, let's celebrate God. And then they started all these spitting stuff, and then I was like, what's my cousin doing in this whole thing? So I was like, fucking, what are you doing going near the mic? And then he came up and he was like, blah, 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 spitting his bars, and I was like, fuck off, my man, you're inside the middle of a Christian church. You're in a feud 6 weeks ago. You know what I mean? And now you're here like, in the name of Jesus. But anyway, so what ended up happening was, I was like looking at that and I was like, there's no way you can switch so fast and be so happy, so healthy. So I was like, come on, I'll go back to our house, you can tell me about all of this stuff. And he ended up playing me a couple of artists. And one of the artists that he played me was Mike Righteous. And the second I heard him, I was like, okay, like his background story, just for example's sake, he was carried across the Pakistani border by his father, so he was left in a ditch, and his family just went through awful turmoil. He wrote his lyrics in cardboard boxes, everything, man, and I was like, fucking, I haven't been that severe in life, but you and me share a lot of similarities, and you're doing it well. So initially I started out with, yo, you sound Wilzee, I'll be rapping till he kills me, all that nonsense, and then it started just to kind of, as I said, go into these places. I started to write, and then I found that other people wrote, and because we were all kind of at the founding stages, no one was better than anyone, only like God Knows and stuff, because that's in their culture. That was celebration in Mass. They dance around the dinner table, they dance for fucking everything, man. So that's what they are, they have that. So that would have been our influence, and then when we came in, we would have been just growing off of that, and then stranding out into our own little pieces. Do you get where I'm coming from? So each person that turned up kind of developed a character, and we kind of developed ego then as well, and so we had to break our ego to recreate ourselves. And the most beautiful moment in my whole career that ever happened to me, man, and that kind of solidified things to myself and the belief in myself, was I actually was lucky enough to get Mike Righteous on a song back in 2017 called Knick Knack, and so that to me was enough. I don't need anyone, I see anyone out there in that world, yeah, I don't need none of their approval, because I proved it to myself. I found the man who started me out, and I fucking got him on a song, brother. And if I can do that, take it from me, please listen to me. I have more convictions than I know where to save them. I have been in more fucking trouble than I know what to do with it. But I was able to pull myself up out of that place and get there and to do it. And if I can, you can, and everyone here can. You just got to pick up a pen and start writing. The rest of the road will take you. You know what I mean?
Fucking A. Yeah. It's inspiring having you here, man.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
You say about you don't need anybody's approval.
Yeah.
But whenever you started off, was it mainly like people supporting you, or did you have anyone kind of hating on you, like friends, family, or?
Yeah, I'm sorry, that sounded very wrong. I don't need no one's approval. Obviously, you need fans and you need people.
No, but let them judge you or say, oh.
My pops.
Or, do you know that kind of way?
My pops was the hardest man to ever do. What the fuck are you shouting at the wall for? I'm not shouting at the wall. I'll be like, kill this, and he'd be like, what the fuck is going on in there? I'd say that was my biggest critic out of all of them, because he, God bless him, he is a man who came from a lot of construction, hands-on stuff. He wanted me in the hands-on stuff, and I was like, no, I'm going to rap, it's okay. And he was like, yeah, you are, yeah. And it is, but yeah, I think that was it. And yeah, of course, you always get haters. Like, everyone is not going to like what you do in life, and not everyone is going to agree with what you do or what you say or what you wear, but it's about how you feel in yourself. And be open to being wrong, I will say that and be open to apologising because I had to do a bit of that as well. Like, but be sure of yourself, and if it feels right in your heart, then what you care about anyone else? Don't let anyone else tell you different.
Someone else had a question, I think, before. Yeah, Hila?
Yeah, it helps me to phrase it because I had thoughts, but now first. So, what are the differences in the ways you express yourself through different forms of media? Like you do hip hop and short film. Is there
Yeah.
anything that you feel like this works best in hip hop, but this I can like express through?
Yeah. I think, I think writing is just everything to me. Pride myself off it, obviously, because of Travellers were never supposed to have education and all that malarkey. I got sick with it, and I overly learned things, and I think that I depend a lot on words, and certain times you can pull from the same inspiration. So like if I wanted to put something that really meant something to my heart, probably wouldn't put it on a rap beat. I'd probably put it on something a lot more slower and guide you through it and allow you to experience the experience with me. And then if it was kind of like I just wanted to give out or I just wanted to do something, then it's like trap beat, 808, boom, 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 fuck you, da, 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 da. So yeah, it's different elements, pull from different things as well, yeah. Thank you.
Would you just, sorry,
Yeah, no, you go first and then we'll go to Amy.
would you just sit down with like a pen and paper, or does like lyrics come to you like say in a car or something?
I think I'm the I don't know. It gets that bad. I think I just have to sit down. I think if I leave it a couple of weeks and I feel the feeling, and I always wake up every morning and play music. And that's half of my morning is spent singing Dolly Parton, and then the other part is trying to feel a rapper again. But so I would say that would be kind of majority of what it is, and then just honing in, spend your time doing it, and yeah.
Ellie, you have a question as well?
Well, just 1 second. I think inspiration. Look at anyone. Look at everyone and anyone around you. Look at your whole family. Everyone has a story, and you can just sit down and talk to someone. And music comes with triggers as well. So, like, if you have a song that makes you happy, you feel a happy thought, you write a happy bar. And sometimes you have to upset yourself to write upsetting music. So I would say that if any of you were ever going to write, that would be a little bit of a thing, that be sure that you're okay with crying when you need to cry, because crying brings that insecure art that people appreciate more than the big fucking, yeah, I've got a gun and I'd blow your head off. Sorry, I know it was in Dublin accent. But yeah, sorry, you were saying.
Now that you've done like the short film and you like doing theatre, is there any other types of like art that you're interested in or would like to explore?
So I have a short story that I wrote as well that's going to be published this year. I have another film that I've wrote. I'm in a couple of feature films and a couple of more musical pieces as well. I don't know if there's any more rounds of writing I can be doing at the moment in time, but definitely in the arts. I'm trying to learn how to dance. Don't hold me to it, but I'm learning how to dance. So you could see me breaking down or breaking a knee or something in one of the videos. But yeah.
Wow, great. Any other questions? Any other burning question? Yeah.
Just following on from your dancing comment there.
Is he going to ask you for a demonstration?
No, he's definitely not.
No. Do you think it's important as a rapper to engage with the other pillars of hip hop equally?
Most definitely, man. It's one thing being good with words. It's another thing when you can interact with a producer who understands it and gets the mode that you're in, feels the same feeling that you feel. And then when you take that and you go to so that's the production of the instrumental, then you go into a studio and it's like, do you mind if I light this ambient scent and then we can get down to business? And then they're like, yeah, light away. And then you kind of get into it, and then you get working with producers. So it's a real team effort, man. It's a real community effort. And yeah, I pride myself on overly thanking people, although they're like, what the fuck does he keep thanking me for? But it's because it takes a team, it takes a community.
Great. I'm wondering, would you give us, we're kind of getting near the end of our time, I wonder if you could give us another piece of music. We have some tracks. I don't, whatever you feel like doing.
Just press play.
Press play.
Yeah.
Where's the switch?
Right. Seeing as we're in Limerick, seeing as I talked about gangland and stuff, I had a little piece that I wrote that goes through all of that kind of stuff, and I hope you like this. This is called Dear Friend. So it goes, tell me why we were left here, when most of what we love is dead years. Yeah, we've shed tears, haven't you? Unknown as to why it makes us feel positive, sharing negative views, spreading lies to keep hatred away from the truth, but never realising that they too could self-abuse, feel down and never choose to reveal that true news. Cause of loyalty nowadays only relies on the few and it keeps decreasing. And karma's a bitch. Tell me who they're really pleasing. Most keep trying to find that reason why second chances are foreseen. But to an ordinary fiend or pure, they better start to dream. Cause I'm pretty sure some develop hatred to the core. You live by the knife, you die by the sword. And this is Stab City and one pretty lady when it comes to war. Divided into four and what for, taking shots at four doors. Let the past be the past, we take it further. A row over smacking, since then look at all the murders. Publicans, bouncers, fathers and brothers, and of course, the ones that were never heard of. Well, families still to this day pray that they turn up. That pain remains, none of it never happened. While youths are outside the doors and naggins, abusing, passing paddy wagons, bragging to rob cars and crash them. But the legends I knew would have flew past in, had the tunes full blasting, joint out the window washing, noise in the roads, no distraction, burning the shades over and under passing. But they too made a divine interaction, and that car mounted the curb and lost traction. Jailbirds, tell me why is this so attracting? Why do girls start attaching themselves to these men, fully knowing it ain't gonna last when the boys' ways are getting put back into that 6x10. Enjoying those 6 minutes when the phone rings, but when the call ends, reality storms back in. Acting fake in front of your friends, saying you're okay, but that's all pretend. Cause just like him, your thoughts are different now. You've learned to live without, but because it's him to shout, is that little seed of doubt that eventually grew. Unknowing as to what you were doing, hearing about the ones that are screwing a few while their fiends is up in the twos, makes his emotions confused. He begins to feel positive, share negative views. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you, Bob.
Well, we might finish up in a moment. Maybe you could just tell us what's in the immediate future. I know there's a release dropping tomorrow.
Yup. So we got a song called Two Friends that's going to be out tomorrow, featuring one of the Grizzly man I was talking about from St Mary's Park, Hazy Hayes. He's going to be on it, and this lovely jazz singer, her name is Jane. She's just a beautiful soul, God bless her. So she's going to feature on that. Following on from that, I have a gig on the 27th of April in the Commercial Bar. So any of you that like to come, it's please do. It'll be lovely to see. We got more releases coming in May. We got more gigs coming in May. Films coming in May. Short film done in May and released in May, and then God only knows back in Kilfenora, I think for June.
April 15th in Dublin as well.
No, that's 5th of May now.
Is it now?
Yeah.
Okay. 5th of May, right? Yeah. So you're a busy man.
Busy man, but grateful for it.
Yeah.
Grateful for
Yeah,
it.
you have it.
Folk
Yeah.
Festival.
Pardon?
Dublin Folk Festival.
Doolin Arts. It's a team up of Welcome to the New World and Doolin Arts, and so that and. Yeah, in the midst of all of that, I'm hopefully going to graduate college next year, yeah.
Hey,
Yeah,
congratulations.
So I do a community and addiction studies course.
That's right. Oh, that's in Shannon, is it?
That's over here in the Rival College.
Okay.
Tuss.
That's awesome.
Yeah. TUS, baby. Is that on camera? Yeah, that's me getting discounted student fees. I'm just currently here in the UL.
Brilliant. Is there any last question before we finish up? Somebody who's been sort of keeping a secret question.
Come on, there's always one.
Yeah.
There she is.
So maybe
two.
Okay, we can take two. Yeah, we'll go Max first, maybe.
Okay. What's your real name and why Wilzee?
Oh,
It's getting personal now.
why Wilzee? Wilzee. Oh, fuck, why did I call myself that? Oh yeah, because I used to work in this job, man, and because my name is Willem Casey is my name, yeah. So it was kind of working off of the Wills part, and then there was this lovely lady who used to work for down the dog track, and she was like, Wilzee, come here, my Wilzee, come here, my Wilzee, and I was like, actually sounds quite nice. So there it is. And I was just like, yeah. Then I went down and I told her, actually the first time I put out, I was like, you see the name there? And she's like, you spelled it wrong.
It's cool with a Z.
Yeah, it's better with a Z and two E's.
Great.
Mine was just, if you had to choose a favorite album from Eminem, which one would it be?
That's the hardest question of the day. 8 Mile, because that's the founding roots. If I had to pick anything else outside of that, it would probably be the Marshall Mathers LPs. I think they're pretty cool, yeah.
Right. Any last words of wisdom to give to us, Wilzee? Any final words for us today before we finish up?
Never let no one tell you you can't do it. And if you ever underestimate yourself, look at yourself in the mirror and just realise that you've got this far, and as hard as it has been, you will get there. See, these colleges and all this time, this is only temporary. And you get out into the real world and you start living your life. So just be careful, just look after yourselves, check in with your friends, be kind if you can, be mean if you have to. And and anything else, if you ever need to talk, reach out, I'm always here, yeah? So feel free. That's it, yeah?
Give it up for Wilzee, everybody.